welcome to Kinks and Beats Daily. I'm your host, Tony Fry. Today we are discussing We Can Work It Out by the Beatles, which is kind of a big song, just in the history of rock and roll. Mostly because it was the first double A-sided single in England. And they didn't have to release it as a double A-sided single in America. They did, but in America, B-sides could chart as well. But this is the first song that was ever, or the first single that was ever marketed as a double A-side. We Can Work It Out was released December 3rd, 1965, alongside Day Tripper. And this was a contentious battle when it came time to promote Rubber Soul, over whether We Can Work It Out or Day Tripper should be the single, because John argued that the band should be focused on their more rock sounding songs for singles instead of the lighter, poppier stuff. And I think he was maybe afraid of losing some of that rock credibility that they had. You know, if you put out a few songs in a row that are kind of on the poppier side, then now you're a pop act. And he was probably trying to avoid that. It didn't hurt that Day Tripper was also his song, so he felt a little bit strongly about it. And then the other guys thought that We Can Work It Out was a little bit more commercial and would make more money. Ultimately, the rest of the band was right. We Can Work It Out topped the charts. Day Tripper did not. It peaked at number 5 in America. We Can Work It Out sold more. It was played more often, and it's sold more when they track point of sale requests and stuff. We Can Work It Out was requested more than Day Tripper. So it was a good move to do the double A. I think had they released Day Tripper as the A side, it would have gone to number 1 too. You can't really know for sure, but had it not had to compete with another quality song, or another song of Beatles quality, it probably would have peaked higher than number 5. But that's it. It's the first double A side. Paul wrote the verse and the chorus, and John wrote the bridge. And by this point in the Beatles' careers, Lennon and McCartney are not actively songwriting partnership anymore. You know, they would come in, Paul could come in with an almost finished song, and John would add a middle eight, or vice versa, or they would tweak lyrics, or maybe John was missing a final verse and Paul would contribute a final verse, but they weren't really sitting down and writing songs together like they were. This song is one of the few instances where it's a true Lennon and McCartney original, with Lennon and McCartney both singing their own parts. And they would repeat this. A Day in the Life does it. I've Got a Feeling does it, where the part that they contributed to the song is sung by the songwriter, which is cool. So Paul wrote the verse and the chorus, John wrote the bridge, and then George wrote the little transition to 3/4, and I use that in quotes because they don't actually transition into 3/4. But at the end of John's part, when they do the right, that little bit on the 3/4 was contributed by George. So this really was a band arrangement. So talking about that transition, so we've got Paul. I think people often say Paul's lyrics in this are bright and sunny, and John's are dark and foreboding, and that was the perfect metaphor for their songwriting abilities. But then if you really look at the words, Paul's are not super optimistic. Try to see it my way. Do I have to keep on talking till we can't go on? While you see it your way, run the risk of knowing that your love may soon be gone. He's basically saying it's my way or the highway. I'm going to split whatever they're fighting about. I'm taking off if you don't agree with me on this. And so instead of it being the more optimistic lyric that some people claim it to be or that people associate with Paul, it's actually more like um, the lyrics for uh, I'm totally blanking on the title, from Sergeant Pepper, where he's talking about, I beat my woman and kept her apart from the things that she loved and things like that. So there's this dark side to Paul's lyrics. And then you get to John's, and life is very short, and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friends. I've always thought that it's a crime, so I will ask you once again. So in this scenario, Paul is being an unreasonable boyfriend or husband or whatever, and he's trying to win this argument by saying, you either need to see things my way or I'm walking out that door and we're done. And John here is the peacemaker. Guys, life's too short. Oh, blah dee blah da, man. Right? It's actually the opposite of what these two guys are known for. But because Paul's kind of misogynistic lyrics are on top of a happy melody in the key of D major, and John's optimistic peace, love, we can work it out lyrics are in the dour B minor, it gives the illusion that they are singing the opposite of what they're actually saying. And that's kind of cool. So we get life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friends. And then we get that descending bass line that I told you about. It's just on the B minor chord. Where you got the harmonium coming down B to A to G to F sharp on top of in half notes. So if our tempo is here, 1, 2, 3, the bass is coming down. Bass and harmonium are going. Wait, yeah. Okay, and just in half notes. 1. Oops, I'm sorry, I played that wrong note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. But what the rest of the band is doing, and the vocals for that matter, are quarter note triplets, which means that in the course of 2 beats, or the half note, instead of fitting 2 quarter notes, which would be normal, we're squeezing in 3. So while the bass and harmonium are doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, the rest of the band's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So you've got this. It feels like they're moving into 3/4, but they're not really, because if they were doing 3/4, the song would go, life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friends. 1, 2, 3, I have always. But because they're doing the triplets, it squeezes basic like 4 bars of 3 into 2 measures, and that's where you get that feel. So it's almost a hemiola. I could make the argument that it is, which is when you have time signatures on top of each other, kind of, and so you've got I shouldn't have brought this up. So you've got 2 time signatures going on at the same time, basically, in the most layman's of terms. So I can make the argument either way. But that's a cool little thing. It adds to the tension. It's a great transition piece from John's lyrics back into Paul's. And it also allows them to get back into the regular key. So that's We Can Work It Out. This is and I forgot to mention the long sustaining notes that we've got throughout the song are played on a harmonium, which is it's a type of pump reed organ. So that's where it's why it kind of sounds like a woodwind kind of tonality, because it is running through reeds like a harmonica would, or clarinet for that matter. So that's that. And then you pump it with your feet to push air through the reeds. So that's what that is. You hear it a few times on Beatles records. I think this was probably the first time, but you hear it throughout the rest of the catalog. It pops up here and there. This has never been one of my favorite songs. I'm more of a day tripper guy myself, but it is a good song with some good songwriting and some really good lyrics from both John and Paul. So as always, you can go listen to this on the playlist we have on Spotify, which you can find if you can't find it on Spotify. You can go directly to it at herohabit.com under the podcast tab, and you will be able to find the Spotify playlist for the Kinks and Beats daily music, as well as the weekly recaps and links to other articles we've written about the band. Give me an email, kinksandbeats@herohabit.com, or call me at 925-494-1739, and I would love to be able to share your thoughts on future episodes. Tomorrow, we're back to early Kinks. I'm just going to leave it at that. Early Kinks hit. Okay, have a great day. I will talk to you tomorrow. This podcast is presented by the Hero Habit Podcast Network. Swing by HeroHabit.com today to comment on this episode and poke around our growing database of sports and pop culture news, reviews, and collectibles. HeroHabit.com. Collect your heroes.